All right, let's shine light. Let's talk about a few subjects, or a few topics, rather. That we're going to address the Isaiah Thomas recent, I don't want to say involvement of if he's a top five point guard. And we have discussed that in prior videos. We're going to rediscuss that or re elaborate on it. And we're also going to have a segment of, bench one, trade one, start one, and it's going to involve Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. And we're gonna go around and do another. I guess we could dabble around the current state of the Pistons, and if they have a up under the new regime, do they have a large window, small window, and matter of fact, we will start there with this current regime up under Trajan Langdon, and you could say the likes of I don't know JB Bickerstaff. I don't know his how long his stint would be. His contract is his contract doesn't really matter. And if the fans were to say, well, his contract number, that don't mean anything. Monty Williams signed a multi-year contract, and he was gone after 1 year, and that 1 year was a nice payout. Excuse me. So the length of a contract doesn't determine, in my book, it doesn't determine how long the terms or the tenure of the individual stay or be, as the current coach or hold being able to hold his position. It should come down to wins and losses, and or if your team is improving, and if so, are they proving 50% more than they have the previous start, or are they regressing or whatnot, or are they still the same? So I would say the 3 year window prediction in my book. I'm going to say JB is going to immediately come out the gate winning. I still look at him and I see that Monty Williams S type deal that is one thing to he will prove me wrong in this perspective if he comes in with a chip on his shoulder based off of what Cleveland did to him. That's one thing that Monty Williams didn't have when he came to the Pistons. He didn't have a chip on his shoulder how Phoenix let him go. And I really don't think he cared because I don't think he cared about where he was going to. Now, of course, you're going to do the song and dance, the PR spin. You're going to say the things that get, you don't want to come in to excuse me, a new situation, burning bridges or whatnot. So you want to come in blowing smoke, if you will, and you're going to say the things, or you're going to be told to say the right things, how to spin it to make you look like you are, let's say, a likable candidate and a candidate that's not here to cause problems. So Monty Williams came in stating that, hey, I want to be here. I want to I want to be a part of the legacy of the Pistons. Going back to this is what else do you supposed to say? And the moment that he said that, I should have saw that as a red flag, and I didn't pay no attention. I saw it, and I just didn't pay attention to it. I ignored it, and I gave him the benefit. And I can say the self same thing towards JB Bickerstaff. What he's supposed to say? He's supposed to say, "Yeah, I want to go to this fine organization, give me the opportunity to showcase what I can do." And excuse me. And I'd like to thank Tom Gores, and as well as Trajan Langdon for hiring me for the job. What else are you supposed to say? You're supposed to say that I really didn't want to be here. I prefer to be somewhere else. I really wanted to be in Cleveland, finishing out what I started. What else do you supposed to say? Of course, you're going to say, I want to be at that place and I want to prove myself. I want to bring Detroit back to from the ashes of of disparity to prosperity. What else do you supposed to say? So I don't follow those. That doesn't move it for me. What moves it if he comes in with a chip on his shoulder. The self same chip that he have on his shoulder is the self same chip that I expect the newcomers to come in with. The likes of Tobias Harris, how he was treated in Philadelphia. I expect him to come with a chip on his shoulder. Tim Hardaway, how he was treated in Dallas. I expect him to have a chip on his shoulder. let's say Malik Beasley, where was he last? Milwaukee, or whatever that he came from. Uh, I expect him to have a chip on his shoulder. And any other that Paul Reed as well. I expect him to have a chip on his shoulder. Any person that was let go from their previous team, they should have a chip on their shoulder coming to this organization, which should bleed or feed through, through the franchise. If everybody's coming in with that chip on their shoulder, then then they should be in a good shape, a good situation, because everybody will have something. They're proof that chip will bring them together. Jay Ivey has a chip on his shoulder, and I cannot commend that guy long enough. And he my one thing against Jay Ivey is it seems to be, excuse me, the one area that he is addressing the most this year. It's not about X's and O's with me. It wasn't about his, if he has the skills or, the tangibles to be a good player or be an elite player. My thing has always been what's between what kind of player is he? Is he like Westbrook that has all the talent in the world but has this huge ego that it gets the best of him? And you saw flashes of that, like when he did the windmill dunk and he missed the dunk. That's that type of ego that I was referring to. That's the target. I mean, that's the area that I really wanted him to target on, and to transform that, not to harness it or to allow it to linger, but to dig it up by its root. And two things that he did that shows me that he's going in the right direction of that, or the steps that he was making prior to these two recent steps was leading up to these two recent steps. And nonetheless, he had where he did an interview. I don't know if it was post game. I don't know what it was, and he spoke about Jesus coming back. He sold me with that. Sold me. He didn't lose me. He sold me. I was hooked in his direction of reinventing the wheel of himself. And then number two, he recently was baptized. Now, for those that want to lead sports to sports, this is where I said time and time before, sports can never be just sports. It's going to involve political. It's going to involve religion, and that it just ties into the whole conversation about Monty Williams losing the locker room. And this is where I would say he only lost the locker room that he never had, right? I don't know how it was going in the locker room. I don't know if he was demanding that people will follow the ways of, I don't want to say being religious or whatnot. I don't know if he was demanding it or whatnot. If that was the case, then then no one will, follow that. No one will really respond well to that. If that's not the case, then he would just, hey, we're going to do it the right way, and which means is we're going to do it in an orderly, conductive way. Or anything outside of that is unacceptable. Yeah, if 90% of the locker room is against it, yeah, they're going to shut down, and it's going to be a thing. They're going to want them out. But anyway, moving aside, going back to Jay Ivey, I want to commend him on that's a life. Those two statements, or whether it was the verbal one and the actual literal taking place of him being baptized, those were two monumental steps forward in any person's life. To be able to confess Jesus as Lord, forgive me, first of all, to be able to get to the point, to get to Jesus, to be able to confess him as Lord, then number two, being able to claim him as Lord, and then be a disciple or a follower of his. And, not so much of a recruiting thing, more so showing the demonstration of the love. Now, I don't know if that was for PR or whatever. That's between God and him. That has nothing to do with me. Nonetheless, I commend what he did. I'm a huge supporter of of that direction, and it's gonna reflect on his actually his play on the court. It's really gonna reflect that, and his life is turning. Whether it's going to be pro basketball or not, his life is turning in a direction that is going to be far more. Far more than the four angles of the court can withhold. He's going to be a different, I would say a different player, for lack of a better term. I said I made a comment in a prior video, a recent prior video, that Ivy was working out with Cunningham, and maybe they're forming that, but I couldn't see them working together unless something like that did happen. And yeah, does that change my stance? Yeah. Do I prefer a taller? Do I prefer a taller, flexible? Not flexible. A taller version of player, a complimentary player next to Cade. Yeah, I prefer that, and I went on record by saying, Lonzo Ball was like my ideal type of guy, and then I started taking a liking to Sar Thompson being next to Cade, and I said this in a video prior ago, and I said if Jaden Ivey is coming off your bench, your team is loaded. If Jaden Ivey is coming off your bench, your team is loaded, and that has nothing to do with like a demotion. Was it better for the team? I can't emphasize this enough. Dealing with the Pistons and their history, the sacrifice has to be made for the sake of the ultimate goal, which is to win the title, not to win the Central, or not to win any division, not to win the Eastern Conference, but actually to win the trophy. That's the ultimate goal, and that's the standard of the Pistons. With that said, I can see Ivy coming off the bench, not in a demotion role, more so it's like a Dennis Rodman, Mark Aguirre type deal. Okay, the very thing that they was, let me draw that up. Before Mark Aguirre became a Piston, they brought the situation to the likes of Adrian Dantley. Adrian Dantley, would you like to come off? Well, not would you like to? We would prefer you come off the bench because of what Dennis Rodman can offer. Dennis Rodman was, we could say, in a Pistons uniform, he was, I don't know, there was nothing he couldn't do. And outside of that, there's a different Dennis Rodman, the San Antonio, Chicago Bulls, all that Dennis Rodman was something totally different than he was with the Pistons. So, since Adrian Dantley didn't want that, from the story of John Sally, next Adrian Dantley was traded for the likes of Mark Aguirre. Mark Aguirre was more of a flexible player. He had the starting spot, but then he goes to Dennis Rodman and said, probably better for you to start. Now, Dennis Rodman was the humble dude to say, no, you start, the vet and everything. And Mark Aguirre was like, okay, no, it's probably best for you to start for the better of our team. And that's what I'm saying for the likes of Jaden Ivey. I can see them playing off of each other now. Cade and Ivey. I mean, for me, Cade and Ivey, I can see them playing off of each other now, more so than maybe the drafting of Ivy, and as well as the following couple of years. I couldn't see them playing together because how I went off what Cade says. Like when he first came in, the idea of him and Ivy playing together, he made a comment. He don't know how it's going to work. That put a little thing in my mind, like, okay, all right, I don't know how this is going to coexist. So moving that aside, Ivy, with those two steps that I've seen, and he has that Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson-esque type of tenacity. Kobe Bryant shot like what, 2 air balls in in the Western Conference Finals against Utah Jazz or something like that. But the next year, he was a much improved player. He was a reluctant player. Same thing about Iverson. Iverson, you could touch him up a few times and he's still gonna keep coming. Still gonna keep coming. And I want to put Jaden Ivey in that category with the likes of those two. That he has that spark that it doesn't matter what you do to him, you're not going to stop him. Once his decision is made, there's nothing you can do to persuade it. And for the beginning part of that, I thought that I was going to get the best. That's why I thought those two couldn't coexist. So when I said that he probably best for him to come off the bench, I was saying it for that perspective, not to demote him, not saying I didn't like him. I was actually a Mathurin guy when it came to that draft, more so than anything. I was a Mathurin. I wanted Mathurin. He was everything that I believe Cade could have used. You know, a three-pointer, a defensive guy, and he had that tenacity, that defensive tenacity type. That I saw that. But then, you know, Ivy, he grew on me in a way that I said him and before Monty Williams came, I said Duren and Ivy is going to be the face of this team. But if you put the ball in Ivy's hand, now of course they didn't do it that way, and they demoted. Monty Williams actually went in the direction that I prefer the Pistons go to this year. He started Killian Hayes next to Cade. The problem with that is Killian Hayes didn't work on his game. Right? He didn't feel like he had to work on his game to get it to the level of to validate his drafting stock. So that's why I recommended Lonzo Ball. And that of course, that's I think that they came out the self-same the self-same draft, Alonzo and Killian. I believe that was that self-same draft. I believe that was the case. If not, it was LaMelo. I think it was Lonzo. I think it was Lonzo. Anyway, if Lonzo was available, he's the player that I believe best fit next to Cade. But I could be wrong, and I'm more likely. It looks as though that it's turned out that I will be with Ivy reaching adjustment. Moving that aside, let's go to another segment. Start one, bench one, trade one. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. Okay, which one am I? I'm starting Michael Jordan, of course, and I'm going to bench Kobe Bryant, and I'm trading LeBron James. I'm starting Michael Jordan. I'm benching Kobe Bryant. And I'm trading LeBron James. Here's the reason why. As much of a freak athlete as LeBron James is, and he is very cerebral, very, just astute of the game. I mean, there's only one LeBron James. And you could say that for so many players that there was no one like LeBron James, and LeBron is like no one else. You could say his height stature, you could put him in the likes of a Karl Malone mixture or Magic Johnson, height and skill-wise, you could say it that way, but after that, LeBron James is still LeBron James. So, I still would trade him. The reason why I start Michael Jordan is because without Michael Jordan, there's no, for those other two. There's no Kobe Bryant and there's no LeBron James without Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, he is not my greatest of all time, nor would he ever be. I still have to go with the ones before him, if I were to elect somebody to be the greatest, and then that would be a toss up between Wilt and Kareem. I will say Wilt first over Kareem because Wilt was here first before Kareem. And if I want to throw a Bill Russell in there, I throw a Bill Russell in there for my three candidates before Michael Jordan could ever get the top three. And with that said, why would bench Kobe? Well, once again, Mike is the prototype for Kobe Bryant to follow. And this is why I would bench Kobe. Why? Because Kobe has that. If I let off the gas with Mike, Kobe coming in filling with him, I'm not going to miss a beat. I'm not going to miss a beat. Why I would trade LeBron James is because of the fact that as much as as LeBron James has to offer, I can lose with LeBron James. With Kobe and Michael Jordan, I can't lose with them. Now, somebody say, well, Kobe lost against the Boston. He lost, lost against the Pistons, and he lost against Boston. Yeah, he did. He didn't lose against us. I mean, he didn't lose against the Pistons, and he didn't lose against Boston. His teammates didn't step up. So if you put Kobe Bryant with a team with Michael Jordan on it, there's no way those two is going to lose. They're not going to lose because they hate to lose. They hate to lose, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to win. LeBron James, I believe he's a winner, and he had the luxury of, go the way that he did. I don't know if he has that chip on his shoulder that he hates to lose. It's almost like you got to provoke him to get it to come out. That's not a bad thing. That's a fair thing. So LeBron, you have to have all the right pieces to win. You have to have all the right pieces. So let's say that again. I'm starting Michael. I'm starting Jordan. Benching Kobe. And I'm trading LeBron James. Now on to the Isaiah Thomas. Is he a top 5 by the recent article by Kendrick Perkins? Is it safe? Shouldn't it be? Well, of course it. I want to say, should it be a restriction if a person should have credibility or if their opinion is creditable? Especially when we're talking about ranking something. And what I mean by that is when we're talking about an ex-player ranking something. All right, if you're an ex-player, you're pretty much saying your career is over and now you are a fan. Your perspective is not centered around you as an athlete playing. The best you can have to offer with that is that you have played against this so-and-so player or whatever the case may be. That may be your argument. Nonetheless, you can't go by you being a player. Your career is over. There's nothing you can do to improve it. It's done. All right. Well, to bring forth some validation to an opinion of an ex-player, if they're not at least a top 10 at their position, what value is their opinion? Say, for example, if a power forward or a center that's not a top 10 at his position is going to say, oh, this point guard is not a top 5, well, how can he say? I mean, well, he can say it because he has a free will to have an opinion. Yeah, but what validates his opinion? What was his career like? What was his career as? Were you a top 10? Were you a top 15? Were you a top 20 at your position? Well, then somebody would say, well, then that shouldn't, change it. That shouldn't restrict a person from being no, you're going to be able to say what you want to say. Yet it brings some validity to what you're saying about your argument. If somebody were to say Isaiah Thomas is not a top 5, well, then give me 5 point guards that's better than Isaiah Thomas. Give me 5 point guards that's better than Isaiah Thomas. And now, if you're going to say you got to put everything in consideration, you can't put numbers, you can't put championships, you can't put all of the accomplishments, you got to put everything in consideration. Because if you're going to say Westbrook is a better point guard, at what point is Westbrook a better point guard than Isaiah Thomas? With Kevin Durant? With James Harden? With whoever that he played against, or with him by himself? Now, okay, when you put up the argument with Isaiah Thomas has, this is no slight towards any of his teammates. You have Joe Dumars, Vinnie Johnson, John Sally, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, James Edwards, Mark Aguirre, and then you have lastly Joe Dumars, right? And forgive me if I missed somebody. Okay, all right. Now put that next to Westbrook, who he had to play with. Kevin Durant, right? James Harden, all right? Let's just say that, okay. If you were to say Steph Curry, look who he had to play with. Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson, right? They're top, first ballot Hall of Famers, right? Can you say that about any of any of Isaiah's teammates? Magic Johnson has James Worthy. No, never mind. Not James Worthy. You have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Enough said. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is once again what we just stated. Well, what I just stated, that he's the great. If he's one or two candidate, top two, one or two candidate, or a candidacy for greatest of all time, and Magic Johnson inherited that. All right. So if you want to say John Stockton, who do you have to play against? Karl Malone. All right. That's one for Karl Malone. Okay. All right. Who else do you have? Who else you gonna put up there? Who would you put in if you were to say Tiny Archibald, Oscar Robertson? Oscar Robertson had Lou Alcindor. Okay. Who you go to? If you say Tiny Archibald, you're really talking about. Or you say Bob Cousy, you're talking about that whole Celtics run. Who you gonna? If Isaiah's not a top 5 point guard, give me 4 other guards. No, give me 5 other guards that's better than him. Magic Johnson you're gonna put up there, but look what Magic Johnson had to go with. Never mind his height. He can't do anything about his height. He can't do nothing about his skill. He can't do anything about that. The only thing there's an argument for Magic is that what he had to play with. This is no slight towards Isaiah's teammates. I'm a huge fan of all of them. I know all of them, and I will take all of them any day. Nonetheless, are they any on their team of first ballot? Joe Dumars gets to the Hall of Fame, but is he a first ballot? You know what I mean? I mean, first ballot. Okay, you can say Dennis Rodman get there. Is he a first ballot? When we talk about first ballot, we're talking about the absolutely no question. When you look at Magic Johnson, no question. Michael Jordan, no question. You look at Wilt Chamberlain, no question. You look at Kareem, there's no question. These are no questions. No questions. Give me somebody give me somebody 5 guards that's better than Isaiah, 5 point guards. You can't even say Steph Curry. People say, well, his accomplishments. He didn't accomplish nothing more than Isaiah Thomas. They say he got more championships. Now, he was on a championship team more than Isaiah Thomas was. I mean, you have to take into consideration he did his part of a team. At a team. Yeah, somebody can say he won a championship without Kevin Durant. Yeah, he did. So what? What does that mean? But you also won a championship with Kevin Durant. So I will never take that away from him being a champion. What I'm saying, I would not hold that. I wouldn't allow that to stand as an argument, or or as something to make his case for him to be a top 5. He is not a top 5. If that's the case, you got to throw Allen Iverson as a top 5. Why? The only reason why you want to say that because he didn't carry the ball the majority of the time. So I'm saying Steph Curry. That's my argument. He's not a top 5. Excuse me. I will put. It will be a case where if he's up there with John Stockton. Now the reason why they would say he's a better player than John Stockton is because he can shoot threes. But it's clearly they wouldn't say he's a better point guard. Why? Because John Stockton didn't win no titles? But John Stockton... The reason why Isaiah Thomas is going to get this backlash from Kendrick Perkins or anybody else, why? Because Isaiah Thomas constantly exposed the NBA. The NBA does not want to cover its bad, the stuff that is swept up under the rug. It does not want to uncover anything. So when you get a whistleblower, if you will, yeah, they need somebody to have someone who doesn't really have the concern or the whereabouts of, they pretty much don't care, if you will, and they're just gonna tell it all. So you get a guy like Charles Barkley, you get a guy like Kendrick Perkins, you get that one guy that is of the self-same race that can throw shade. But I'm not saying Charles Barkley did it. I'm saying you get that it's almost like, okay, how do you kill Malcolm X? You don't kill it with somebody. It may be somebody on the outside agenda, or somebody outside playing, but yet it is only by his own hand that killed him. So that's the same thing with the likes that we're doing with the Isaiah Thomas thing. But you can't give me 5 point guards that's better Kendrick Perkins. You can't give me 5 point guards. And even in your case, if you're going to say he's not, then where are you in the center position? Where are you? Are you the top 20, top 30, top 50? Yeah, it's one thing for a player to say. Oh, excuse me. It's one thing for the fans to be able to say it, or they're fans. That's this. They're the athlete is put on a show for them, so they have somewhat of a right to basically, okay, all right, I would like to select them or put this as an all-star. I want to put this as my greatest of all time. They have a right to do that as a fan, so to speak, because the athlete is actually is paid. They're paying how can I say, they're rewarding the fan by doing so, because if the fan is not watching them play, then the players don't really have anything. So it's like a reward. They're rewarding the fans for doing so by being able to put themselves in that position. But when you get to an ex-player that does it, it's nonsense, because you have to go by where you were ranked. If Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were to rank himself as in his category of centers of all time, yeah, he could validate it because he is, look, his numbers speaks for itself. But if you get somebody who like Kendrick Perkins, who his only accomplishment is with Kevin Durant. I mean, for me, not Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Doc Rivers. That's that's the only thing he has on him. I mean, otherwise he's just like a regular old fan. His career is absolutely, how can I say it? His career is not even close to Bill Laimbeer. And they nowhere near they don't even allow Bill Laimbeer to be in the category of being considered as a Hall of Famer. So what I'm saying, he doesn't even, and Bill Laimbeer is in my eyes, if you can go up against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and handle your own, go against the likes of Robert Parrish and handle it yourself, and my hat will always be tipped off to him. And but you get a player like Kendrick Perkins, whose career, really was nothing, as Charles Barkley would say. These stiffs. He was a stiff. I mean, give me something outside him being, he was like, he was the muscle, if you will, but statistically, outside of Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and even Rondo, there's no Kendrick Perkins. There's no Kendrick Perkins, or even let's say for JJ Redick. Now, if you get somebody, a network that would push them in the forefront of giving them microphone, then it's sort of like it's validated for something, but there's nothing there. But moving along from that, well, Isaiah Thomas he is and always will be a top 5 point guard. There's no one can do what he's done. His resume speaks for itself. If you want to go by championships, that's unfair, because the only time, well, let's say it this way. An individual is never rewarded for a championship. It's the better team. Now, give me a point guard that had a better team than Isaiah Thomas, and they deserve to be a champion. Okay, Boston was a better team, from their starting five to their bench players to their coaches, and even with the referees, they had the better team. You could say the same thing for the Los Angeles Lakers. Outside of those two, who was better than the Pistons? You can't say Chicago, because Chicago wasn't. Outside of the Lakers and the Celtics, who was better than the Pistons? You can't say Philadelphia, even with Dr. J and Dr. J, Andrew Toney, Maurice Cheeks. I'm drawing a blank. Moses Malone. And I'm drawing a blank. Jeez. I think that's it. I'm missing a player on that team. That team was that. I want to say that was the not 86. Was that 83 Sixers? That team was loaded when when Doctor who came over there to the Sixers that year? Moses Malone. When Moses Malone came over there, that team was loaded. Anyway, in the East or in the NBA period, the two teams to beat was the Lakers and the Celtics, and then you of course you could throw in the mix. You could throw in you could throw in the likes of a Sixers every now and again, and you could throw another sprinkle team here and there. But it was just Boston, and LA. Outside of those two, Boston, LA, who had a better team than the Pistons? You got one stint with Philadelphia, one stint. All right, when the Pistons was in their prime, who was a better team than the Pistons? So with that being said, who was leading that team? It was who? Who was leading that team? Now, when you look at Steph Curry, you have to say Draymond played a big part. You got to say Klay Thompson played a big part. You have to say Kevin Durant played a big part. And then, of course, you include Steph Curry. But Steph Curry didn't carry that team from nothing to something. He didn't carry it from nothing. That team was already established before he got there. When they had, I think it was Monty Ellis and who was that? Monty Ellis and was it Baron Davis? It was up under Mark Jackson first year, but I think it was the transition from Don Nelson to Mark Jackson, I believe. And I believe it was Monte Ellis. And then they draft Steph Curry. And then they end up drafting Klay Thompson, and that became their backcourt. But it was something already established before he got there. Yet, when it comes to Isaiah, there was nothing. So give me 5 point guards that came from that they started their franchise off on nothing, and they had to go through the juggernauts to get to the top. Now Steph Curry inherited a super team. Yeah, you can say he was drafted. Not Kendrick Parker. You could say forgive me. Draymond Green was drafted. You could say Klay Thompson was drafted, and but outside of that. Steph Curry was drafted. Yeah, you could say yeah, and I get that. I get that, but they was in the Western Conference, or they was how was it? They were in the finals, and they came up short, something like that. Oh no! They won. I believe they was in the West Conference, and they beat out OKC, and that's when Kevin Durant decided to go to okay, and that's my point. That's Steph Curry's legacy. You're not a winner until Kevin Durant gets there. Even though I believe wait a minute. I believe they did win before Kevin Durant got there. Before Kevin Durant got there, they won a year before. Yet his legacy is through the Kevin Durant run. Nobody, I mean, they was coming to see Golden State, but nowhere near until Kevin Durant got there. Golden State wasn't a must-see TV until Kevin Durant got there. So, if Isaiah Thomas had a Charles Barkley on his team, what status would you put Isaiah Thomas at as the greatest of all time? Barkley never won a title. Let's say Patrick Ewing never won a title. Let's say Reggie Miller never won a title. Let's say any one of those three was next to Isaiah Thomas. What kind of legacy will Isaiah Thomas have? Right? I'm saying that you can't help what team that you inherited. Yet when you got to put things in that kind of perspective. If you have first ballot Hall of Famers on your team, there is no question about those. Klay Thompson, there's no question about it. Kevin Durant, there's no question about it. But that's where your legacy is. So you can't do nothing. Magic Johnson can't do nothing about his height, being 6'9", and his vision and everything. He can't do nothing about that. That's God given. That's internal. You can say instincts, whatever. He can't do anything about that. Yet you have to take in consideration. He has Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You have to take that in consideration. He has Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he played along with Norm Nixon, Jamal Wilkes. He played with Bob McAdoo. He also had James Worthy. Look what he had to play with. Okay, Bob McAdoo, not he's a Hall of Famer. He should be, and he should be one of the 75, not greatest of all time. Then you have Cream, who great, 75. All right, James Worthy, he was 75. All right, and I don't know where Jamal Wilkes is. I don't know what Norm Nicks. They're not in that category. But look what he had to play with. So I'm making an argument for Isaiah Thomas, and I'm not defending being biased or attempt to be biased, stating it for what it is. What point guard had to go through what Isaiah had to go through? From you talking about bringing a team from a franchise from non-existent. I mean, non-existent. Boston was already established before Larry Bird got there. Lakers was already established before Magic Johnson got there. Right? All right. The only place I will have an argument with, you could say Steph Curry had that, but you can't really say that Steph. No, because they. I believe it was what was that? What's his name? I want to say Joe Barry Carroll, but that's not the guy I'm looking for. Brent and John Barry's father. I believe he played for the St. Louis Warriors. I believe that's what their name was, and I believe he won there. But I'm Steph Curry. He didn't have to bring that team from nothing. It was already established before it got there. Like I said, I believe it was Monte Ellis and Baron Davis was the backcourt for Don Nelson going into Mark Jackson, and it was winning. Of course, they wasn't nowhere near at the status of the Kevin Durant run. But without Kevin Durant, Steph Curry is not on the map. I mean, he will be like a Reggie Miller-esque. He won a title. Don't get me wrong. He won a title without Kevin Durant. Yet, he is in that category. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, if you'd gave Reggie Miller the chance to shoot from half court, he probably could have shot it from half court too. If you gave his dad was a great 3-point marksman. If you gave his dad that volume amount of shots, he probably would have been a better, in the record books as a 3-point shooter. So I'm saying I'm not taking him out of it. I'm just putting it in perspective of, people going by what they see. This generation going to go by what they see. Well, it's in front of you. You witness something that's never been done before in front of you. Of course, it's going to be your greatest. But that's what any person that saw Michael Jordan play, or any person saw Isaiah Thomas play. No, not Michael Jordan. Forgive me. Any person saw Isaiah Thomas play. The things that Isaiah Thomas did, no other point guard his size has ever done before. Matter of fact, no point guard has ever done what he's done before. Not even Magic Johnson. That's why you could say Magic Johnson is number whatever, because no one has ever done what Magic Johnson done before. Steph Curry, somebody has done what he did. Ray Allen shot there was a lot of good 3-point shooters. But Steph Curry didn't lead his team to a championship. He didn't lead his team to a championship. Somebody say he won a title without Kevin Durant. Yeah, I give you that. He won, but once again, it's about the better of the team. Did he have to take that franchise from nothing to the championship? And then, if so, what he had to go through? Isaiah had to literally beat two juggernauts, the Boston Celtics and the Lakers. Once he got through the Celtics, he had to play the Lakers. Normally, it's whatever that you face in your conference. That normally is the finals. Like once Michael Jordan played the Bulls, once Michael Jordan faced the Pistons, and once he beat the Pistons, whoever was in the West didn't stand a chance. That's how it is. Same thing goes with the Western Conference, unless you're talking about Lakers versus Celtics. Or that one. I want to say 80. It could have been 86 when Dr. J and that run, that the championship run. I don't know. It was 83 or 86. Forgive me. Other than that, it was either Celtics or the Lakers to beat. If the Celtics were in the finals and they wasn't going against the Lakers, it was pretty much going to be a wash. Give me a time that Boston never lost in the finals and they played against another team that wasn't the Lakers. When they played against Houston, that was a disaster. Give me another team that Boston, when they played, whoever they played in the finals, if it wasn't the Lakers, Tell me the outcome. Boston won. Give me a team that the Lakers played against that they lost against in the finals outside of Boston. It's going to be the Pistons. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, Michael Jordan won in 91. Well, that's 91. We're talking about in the prime, we're talking about Magic and Kareem. We're not talking about just Magic. We're talking about Magic and Kareem. In 91, there was no Kareem. And you cannot tell me, even a ageful one of Kareem in the finals against if there's no way there's no way Chicago would have beat them. Even with Michael Jordan being what he is, they wouldn't have won. So, with that said, give me somebody that's done what Isaiah Thomas. Now, of course, Isaiah Thomas doesn't have the championship team, championships or the rings to showcase. He doesn't, nor does he have the MVPs. Look what he was going up against. There was no way he was going to get it. You're going up against, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. Then you throw in a little Dr. J in there. Maybe Dr. J. But to say Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. And then the league basically pushed Michael Jordan there to hurdle over Isaiah. Isaiah was there, right there in line. He was right there in line. He took down the two giants. And then they catapult Michael Jordan over the Pistons. The league did. Well, I get it. It's a money thing. I look. I won't dispute it. They did it. It is what it is. Yet, give me some Kendrick Perkins. Give me 5 point guards that had to go through what Isaiah had to go through, and to justify themselves as a top 5 point guard. You can't give me Westbrook. Westbrook only did it for 1 year. Now he's a Hall of Famer, but his Hall of okay. Give me okay. All right. Patrick Ewing is a Hall of Famer, but nobody's saying he's the greatest of all time. Well, his numbers is pretty decent. All right, but it's not decent compared to who? Wilt, Kareem, not even Shaquille, right? And even if you want to throw Shaquille as a top 5 point guard, a top 5 center, he's not. Shaq is not a top. And once again, the people will say the players that would say that he is a top 5 because they saw him play. Yeah, he's right in front of your face. Yeah, but if you was in, let's say, if you was in a Dr. J seat, he wouldn't say Shaq. He would say the likes of Wilt, Kareem. He has those guys, and he also had R.S. Gilmore. He had those guys in front of him. Bill Russell, he had those. So Elvin Hayes, you had it. Well, Sunset. If it's right in front, if it's the first time you're seeing it, yeah, you're gonna be biased. It's the first time. If you saw Michael Jordan glide from the free throw line, you think he's the first one that ever did it. But not knowing that Dr. J did it some years back, I think it was 76, 77, somewhere around there, in the slam dunk contest. I mean, he did it first. But nobody say that. What I'm saying, if you see if you see the player do it for the first time, you're gonna see it's like somebody were to say, if you had Chris Brown, you could say Justin Timberlake, Usher, and they say they're better than Michael Jackson, but Michael Jackson did it first. So anyway, I'll put that aside. Isaiah Thomas, there's no way he can ever lose being a top 5, lose that position of being a top 5 point guard. Because no, you gotta give me 5 other point guards that took their team from nothing to something and had to go against 2 juggernauts. 2 juggernauts. Now Steph Curry had to go up against if Cleveland was a juggernaut, he wasn't. They jumped LeBron. To beat LeBron James, they jumped LeBron James. If LeBron James had Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh on his team and Steph Curry and their team beat them, then that's a totally different deal. Totally different deal. But LeBron didn't have no help. And on the scale of what Magic Johnson had or Larry Bird had. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. Let me see. Anything else? Let's just talk about the current Pistons thing. To wrap up with the current Pistons team now. I said in the last video that Oh, I made a comment on, I believe it was a podcast. I want to say it was either Pistons Talk or it was another outlet, another social outlet, that I made a comment that Paul Reed and Isaiah Stewart and Paul Reed, with an addition of Asar Thompson, is going to be the identity of the Pistons. And now I'm going to alter that a little bit. I'm going to alter that with this: Isaiah Stewart, Paul Reed, Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey. That's going to be the face of the team. Cade, I could see them with him. I could see this team without him. But I'm leaning towards 60-40, this team being without him. Whether due to trade, injury, or whatever the case may be, I don't see him being a Piston long term. But those other players, I could see Paul Reed being a fan favorite. I could see him being a fan favorite, more so the likes of Dennis Rodman, Ben Wallace, S type player versus being a junkyard dog. Even a Jerome Williams, if you will, he could be in that tier. But I could see him being a fan favorite. I Cade, I believe he has that Grant Hill opportunity where it's sort of given to you. We'll see this year if he's going to seize it. My prediction for Cade is that he should average 20. Well, it depends on how the system run, but I'm going to say he should average between 20. I want to say 25 or more per game. He should. I believe his teammates should be relying on him to do more offensively and less defensively. I think they're going to cover him a lot defensively. This is why I would say Isaiah Stewart and Paul Reed. I would like to see them more so in the lineup, not to demote Duren. Yet they with Asar they can cover the likes of Cade. Cade doesn't have to. Cade could be some more weak side defender, if you will. Weak side help, not weak side defender. Weak side help, if you will. And he doesn't have to focus so much on being a defensive player unless he's just going to be that. Michael Jordan wasn't going to be defensive player without Scottie Pippen. It was going to be impossible. Now don't get me wrong, he would have put forth the effort, but there's no way he was going to be defensive player without Scottie Pippen. And that goes into my argument with that of Michael Jordan being the greatest. He can't be the greatest because he didn't start it per se. This is why I'll give him credit for him saying that he couldn't say that he is, because he had to, really look at the ones before him, Dr. J's, the Elgin Baylor's, the Jerry West, and so forth, and all those other players. You have to credit them. This is why if any player were to say that they are the greatest of all time, any current player were to say they are the greatest of all time, that's nonsense. There's nothing your game can. There's nothing your statistics, your game, your resume can validate that you are the greatest, because you didn't play against the greatest. You played against. I want to say, you play against your peers that you had to play against the cards that you got dealt. You had to play the cards that you dealt. I understand that you play against the talent just before you. Yet, if you, this is why I would agree with Michael Jordan when he said that he can say that he is, because he didn't play against the ones before him. And that's why I would say for Steph. If Steph were to say he's a top 5 point guard right now, no, there's no way he's a top 5. You could say he's the argument of one of the greatest shooters of all time. You could say that, but not a top 5 point guard. You could say he has. I don't know if he has more assists than Isaiah Thomas. I don't know if he has more steals than Isaiah Thomas. I don't know if he impacted the game better than Isaiah Thomas. I'm talking about offensive, defensively, and in the same way. And don't get me wrong, I will never take away what he has accomplished. Yet in his resume, I take Isaiah Thomas over it. Of course, there was going to give somebody could say, well, Isaiah Thomas was never a league MVP. There was no way you're going to give Isaiah Thomas league MVP. There was no way. If LeBron James is in, okay, LeBron James, and you have, let's say, Wemby. Going up instead of you have LeBron James in his prime, Wemby in his prime. No, not Wemby. Let's say, yeah, you could either say Giannis or LeBron James, Giannis. Let's say LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry. Who do you think will get the MVP that year? If you have Steph Curry with, you have, Kevin Durant with Westbrook and James Harden at OKC. You have LeBron James with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and that team. And then you have the likes of Steph Curry with Draymond, Klay Thompson, without. This is before he gets to Kevin Durant. Now, who do you get an MVP to? You have LeBron James with the Cleveland Cavaliers with that run. And then you have Steph Curry with Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and without Kevin Durant. Or do you have, I'm missing somebody. Who do you get an MVP to? Kevin Durant, LeBron James, or Steph Curry? If they're in a prime with those teams, all right, you have, we would just, okay, there's no way Steph Curry going to come out with that MVP. Steph Curry is Isaiah Thomas in that situation. If Steph Curry is going up against the likes of LeBron James and Kevin Durant in the MVP balloting, there's no way Steph Curry going to get it. There's no, that's what Isaiah Thomas had to go against when he go up against Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, before Michael Jordan ever was. And before, when Isaiah was in position to get the MVP, they leaped over him and gave it to Michael Jordan. Now, don't get me wrong. As an individual, whatever, Michael Jordan put up some whatever, but look what he had to do. He didn't have to give it Michael Jordan. He just had to put up shots, and he didn't have to sacrifice his game. Don't get me wrong. He had to do a lot more, but he didn't have to sacrifice his game. Now, I think his first year up under Doug Collins, he was playing point guard, and he was averaging close to 10 points a game. 10 assists a game, if not 10 assists. So okay, you can throw that in there. Could he have done the point guard position? Yeah, he could have done it. Yeah, but he's a primary scorer. So that's why I would put Steph Curry in that category with Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson. Your game is, your responsibility is to be a primary scorer. If you give us anything else, that will be extra. If you gave us rebounds, 6-7 rebounds, or you gave us 6-7 assists, that's extra. You gave us 1-2 steals, that's extra. But your primary responsibility is to score the ball. That wasn't Isaiah's job. Isaiah's job was to do both. Get the team involved and score the ball. And carry the team from nothing. Give me 5 point guards that did that. That's from the history of the game. Give me 5 point guards that have to do what Isaiah had to do. And I close out with that. Piston fans, I salute.